Good afternoon. I'm going to bring another R into the conversation that I haven't heard talked about very much, and that is rangelands. So nearly half of the Earth's land surface is classified as rangeland, and the health and productivity of the land are directly critical to the livelihoods and cultures of more than 500 million people around the world, many of whom are indigenous peoples. Pastoralists and other people who derive their livelihoods from rangelands are both users and environmental stewards of the land. Typically, pastoral systems are low input and more environmentally friendly than many intensive agricultural systems. And many examples of sustainable pastoralist practices exist. Such systems are critical for achieving food and water security, as well as resilient local and national economies, and for improving environmental conditions such as carbon sequestration, biodiversity, and protection of land and ecosystems. For example, in Mongolia, 3,127 species and subspecies of vascular plants are recognized, with 980 of these having forage significance. But conversion of native grasslands and to other land uses is threatening these ecosystems. Unhealthy and unproductive rangelands undermine food security, lead to conflicts, destabilize countries, endanger national security, compromise economic productivity, and rob our youngest generation of opportunities for a prosperous future. Many forces threaten the productivity and ecological integrity of these lands. Common threats in both developed and developing countries include restriction of mobility, programs to settle pastoralists, unsustainable grazing practices, expansion of arable farming into areas best suited as rangelands, breakdown of common property systems, rangeland fragmentation, rural exodus, invasive plants, and harmful subsidies and policies. Mobile pastoralists face discrimination and conflict. Products derived from rangelands, such as meat and milk, face intense competition from products from unsustainable, intensive livestock systems. Given increasingly dry and erratic climates, rapidly increasing human populations, fast pace of unsustainable land use changes, and threats to ecosystems, growing public health concerns about overconsumption of animal source foods, growing economic inequalities and uncertainties, and increasing conflicts associated with diminishing natural resources, drought, and climate change. These landscapes and livelihoods need urgent attention. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development outlines specific goals and targets for sustainable agriculture and promoting sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems. Healthy and productive rangelands throughout the world are needed to realise these goals. Pastoralists are explicitly recognised as a group of people who should benefit from the achievement of the SDGs, and countries cannot afford to continue to neglect them. Indeed, there is a growing movement to protect rangelands and the livelihoods of pastoralists and other land users that rely on them. This includes efforts to protect rangeland biodiversity and ecosystem services, better manage and plan rangelands and rangeland resources, resolve conflicts between land users, secure land rights, build the voice and representation of pastoralists and other local land users, restore and improve the productivity of rangelands and the livestock. However, greater investment in rangelands is required. There is significantly less investment in rangelands than in other terrestrial ecosystems, such as forests. There is still a dearth of information and data on rangelands, including no detailed global map of rangeland areas. A recent gap analysis entitled A Case of Benign Neglect, undertaken by UN Environment and partners, highlighted these concerns and the bias against rangelands. As coordinator of the Global Rangelands Initiative of the International Land Coalition, a member of the International Support Group for the call for an International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralists, on behalf of the government of Mongolia, whose representative was not able to be here today, where 75% of the 150 million hectares of the country are pasture land, I call for rangelands to be given central attention in the UN Decade of Ecosystem Restoration. The condition and productivity of the world's rangelands are critical to our sustainable future, not only for people directly depending on these lands for their livelihoods, but also for the billions more benefiting from them for tourism, wildlife, biodiversity, meat, milk, and other agricultural products. We must be there to unlock their full potential, improve the sustainability and use of livestock as a multifunctional source of food security, cultural identity, and productive livelihoods, secure and protect the rights of local rangeland users, and particularly of pastoralists, and stem the increasing number of conflicts in these areas, protect their rich biodiversity, and reduce the negative impacts of climate change. Thank you.